All right, welcome back. Okay, let's take a look at what we have on the issue we have on iron politics. Today, the big issue is the court is going to decide whether the conservatory orders which was given, the stay order of the finance bill is going to be decided or not, whether it's going to be affected or the conservatory order is going to be, be stayed or otherwise, other orders that courts will give us. But before we get into that, Mheshimiwa Michael Muya, let me start with you. Where we speak as a nation, where are we? Let me give you a minute each to give me your side of the story, the state of our nation right now. Generally, start with you, Muya.
Thank you, Victor. I would say currently as a country, economically, we are not doing very well. And I come from the economic side of view. When I was in the university, I did economics. And what really drives a country is first is political stability. When you have political stability, you grow as an economy because there is a will, there is a faith that people have it. But currently, where we are now as a country, we are sitting on a time bomb, I would say, based on where we are. And if you look at the budget, you look at the finance bill, you look at everything, the cost of living is a bit too high. The rate of inflation is growing at a very high rate. If you look at it on a monthly basis, like 0.9% of it was 7.9, now it's at 8.2 inflation. The cost of living is so high. And what is driving the cost of living? First and foremost, there are things within the economy which drive such situations. First is the cost of fuel. When you touch fuel really skyrockets everything, and what the expenses of anybody, small, big, middle, high end, and name it. So I would say is we had under the President Uhuru, we had subsidies on fuel. That I don't think should have ever been removed, because that really kept us on a level whereby at least things were not, the cost of living was not so high. But currently, if I would say, is there are things that are not moving well, and that is now you end up with what Senator is saying, having issues with Azimio is having this issue of the cost of living. Punda amechoka, and you're still loading on him in so many other ways. And this is touching almost everybody in this country. And if you say it, even name every sector of the economy is really affected. So mine is they need to reconsider to subsidize on fuel. I know we are just coming from COVID. This country economically, not only Kenya, everywhere, all the whole world is suffering. But as a country, what do you do?
Okay.
Subsidize.
All right.
Subsidize, yeah.
Okay. Senator, we just came from election, 11 months down the line. Time really flies. Almost 1 year gone. I mean, we're just from election, and here we are, clocking almost a year. Where are we as a nation?
11 months down the line, there are very many positive aspects to speak about the Kenya Kwanza government. The president has been having very many bilateral engagement and signing of agreements. The other day, you even saw him in Comoros when the country was having their 48th independence celebrations, where he was actually recognized for some of the issues he's been advocating for. The president has equally been on the forefront on both issues that are affecting Kenya and internationally. Like internationally, he's pushing for very strong African Union, whereby we can sort our own issues, especially economically, and have a permanent stay at the UN, the African Union Security Council. Coming back to what you've actually said, we are coming back from a very tough situation. And if I make reference to what the Honorable colleague here said, during the Uhuru regime, we had those subsidies. Did you ever see the 100 shillings unga on the supermarket shelves, even with the subsidies? It's at that time that we had confessions from even the controller of budget saying they were actually forced to sign. You saw what Madam Margaret Nyakango was admitting. Yeah. It's during those subsidies that this country lost resources that we are not even able to recover up to now. We cannot continue digging the hole deeper. That's where this administration came with their own proposal on how they think we can get this country back to its footing. And for the first time in history, I've seen the country engage seriously on a budget. We've had very many robust conversations, even with ordinary mwananchi giving their proposals on what they actually think. We had that opportunity. And our proposal was passed in the National Assembly as the actually talked about finance bill. So to say we want to go back to the issue of subsidies, that's not a solution. Because even when we had those subsidies, the cost of living was not brought down. Now with the measures this government has put in place, they are tangible product you can talk about, their costs going down. So I do not want to think about going back to a regime where resources were plundered with no one taking responsibility. This administration has already showed the political goodwill. Look at what the president did in the ministry when the KEMSA issue came about.
Yeah, people were sent packing.
Yeah, he's not going to smile at people.
Yeah.
It's time to serve Kenyans, and that's why I keep on asking, how is Maandamano solving the issues we are discussing as ordinary citizens in this country?
Okay.
The only thing I see is destruction of people's property. And you know, when such property is destroyed, it's not leaders who suffer, it's the ordinary mwananchi who suffers, who will sleep hungry because of going to Maandamano, using young people who are looking for jobs in Maandamano instead of offering alternative solutions. As a member of parliament, I would expect the ODM members of parliament to converse some of these issues at the National Assembly, but not conversing such heavy issues that are meant to solve issues facing this country in the streets, putting Sufuria on your head.
Jeffrey Ruka has also come up with amendments and recommendations to streamline.
Now, those are the issues we should be talking about, not Maandamano on the street where people are going to destroy people's property and you take forever to recover. Whereas as a country, our focus as the Kenya Kwanza government is on service delivery.
Okay. It's something you've talked about.
And Victor, there are so many things that this government is doing which I would like see be highlighted. The other time, Citizen hosted the CS for ICT, Honorable Eli Dowalo. And you can see the last time when we came in, we had around 320 digital services that mwananchi can access. Now we have more than 5,000 services that are digitally available on platforms that ordinary citizens don't have to travel from Sijui, Kisii or Nyamasaria to Nairobi. Those are things I want to talk about. Those are the conversations we should be having as a country.
When you look at based on what the Senator said, the president is busy internationally, and of course having a very strong position as a nation with African Union, Security Council there. Can we survive without looking towards our big brothers outside there? As African Union, as African, we have a strong economic bloc. The president is really rooting for that.
First of all, Victor, I take great exception at you calling me here early morning like this and gagging me or muzzling me to talk about something because I don't know, there's no representation from who or where else. I'm an elected member of parliament, and I can talk about any topic under the sun.
I have not gagged anyone.
I can talk about any topic under the sun. All right.
I have not
so you will not stop me from talking about Maandamano because there's no representation from ODM or from wherever it is.
No.
Now, let me talk about this. First of all, I want to say. So you will let me talk about Maandamano and the collection of signatures and all those things.
It's a free space.
Yes,
it's a free space.
And that is what we're supposed to do. Now, so first of all, I'll tell you two things. The issue of collection of signatures, I think Article 145 is very clear on how to impeach a president and how to remove a president from his position, and it's a parliamentary process, a parliamentary process which the minority side has refused to follow. So I don't know where they want to take the signatures because there's no IBC to take it to, there's no government according to them. So I don't know where you're collecting signatures to take to UN, or I don't know where you want to take the signatures. Anyway, that's a story for another day. Now, I want you to know, and I am happy here because we have an economist, and I know he will agree with me that the biggest problem we have in this country in terms of cost of living, it doesn't matter, we can talk until cows come back home. But if we do not address the issue of balance of payment, we will never sort out the issue of cost of living. By the way, the cost of living, the cost of fuel in the UK now is 195 per litre of petrol. That goes to maybe 230 Kenya shillings. It's very high, but people can afford it because all this money is being spent within the economy. As long as all our money is spent in other economies, as long as the tie you're wearing is coming from another country to create employment there, as long as the paper you're reading has come from another country, as long as the paper, I mean, everything that we have is coming from another country, and we do not manufacture in this country, we will never fix the issue of cost of living. It will always be expensive. So the first thing to do, and that is what the government is trying to do in the budget that we just passed, in the finance bill, is to discourage importation of stuff that we can produce in this country. We must look at our comparative advantage and agree that at least we can produce food. So let us not import. Let us first fix this. We can say for now we do not have petroleum products, so those ones we shall import. But we say that for anything that can be produced in this country, we make it our business to make sure that we do not import that which can be produced or manufactured in this country. That is how we are going to create employment for my people in Gatundu. That is how we are going to create employment for everybody else within the economy. Now, I want you to understand this as an economist, that once we sit here and I have this pen that has come from another country, someone was employed in that factory that produced this pen. And if our people do not have money to, even if the cost of petrol is 1 shilling, and we do not have that 1 shilling, it will still be expensive. You know? So, let us not, this thing must be looked at from a perspective, from a macro perspective. And you cannot isolate issues and say that now this is the particular problem that we have. No, it is every industry in this country. When we look at what we are wearing right here, all of us in this room, nobody has any apparel that comes from this country. Everything has been produced in another country.
Other than yourself.
Other than myself, by the way. and you see, no, I'm not in a bad way. I don't say
no, yes.
I don't say it's a bad thing because you see, we wear what is available in the market.
Precisely.
Except myself who has now decided, no, I will go and go to Kikomi and get a kitenge, or I'll go to Rivertex and get a kitenge.
It's been done by a local tailor, Jojo Tieno.
But you see what I mean also is, and it is okay. But you say generally, and this I am not accusing any of us. We're just having a debate, so please. And with all, Senator is my friend. I would not accuse her. But I'm saying, your probability of walking to a shop in this town and getting any cloth that is made here in this country is very remote. The possibility is very remote. If you just walk to, if you decided to wear a shirt today, if you stained your shirt with tea or something, and you decided to get a shirt in this town or anywhere, the probability that it will have come from another country is almost 100%. All right? It takes you a lot of pain for you to spend money on your clothing in this country. It takes you to know a good tailor. It takes you to know someone. It takes you to know Senator Okenyuri so that she sends you to that gentleman that he has just mentioned, the tailor. What did you say his name is? Jojo Tieno. So what I'm saying is this should be the norm other than the exception. The norm should be that for things that we can produce, and that is why the president said he only giving 2 years. After we fix Kenani leather industries, then we shall not allow importation of shoes. We start there. Then we say we are just about to fix the cotton industry. And we're bringing gineries, and the Ministry of Trade is now doing that, and we are going to revive industries in Kirinyaga.
But when you talk about such industries, Mheshimiwa, it's quite unfortunate that we have this industry, the gineries we have, the Kikomis of this world. We have all these leather industries in our country.
Because why we have a problem and why they're dying is because we have taken this to be tokenism. That, the president one day, some years back, said that he has given a directive for public servants or public employees, civil servants, to wear African clothes on Fridays. It's tokenism. So we are not ready to bring this story in our economy properly. And that is why you saw me the other day disputing the way we dress in Parliament. And I was asking, what is in a tie? Why do I become a better? Why does Babu Owino look more intelligent than Oledama just because he has a tie and Oledama has a lesson? It should be okay for me to just dress the way I am dressed and go to Parliament. Let me finish. Victor, please allow me this point.
Okay.
I looked at Parliament and I realized every day we're in that Parliament, because the cost of a suit is probably 50,000, 40,000 shillings every day. One day in Parliament, you find that people are dressed in about 50 million Kenya shillings that has come from another country because, and we have made it in law. We have entrenched this in law that it is okay for people to go and buy clothes in other countries and come to them in parliament, and that becomes law.
All right. Okay, Daniel, that's one pair of suit, 50,000.
Go to this town.
Okay, all right. Daniel.
Declaration.
Can I say something before?
Declaration.
Let Daniel say something. Daniel has spoken.
That's why I'm not in a suit. I
And
cannot
I have
afford
agreed.
50,000.
Okay, Daniel.
And I have agreed with some of the assertions. Let me also put it clear, Victor, for us to probably to be fair and just to the conversation, that we invited to on the matters that are making headlines, and therefore we cannot apportion to come and say that we probably should be speaking about something of this nature. Personally, we do not have a choice sometimes to direct what we're speaking about, right? So let me just correct that it is upon us as leaders to try to be much to articulate the current issues that are going on without really dictating what we want to speak about or not. So first of all, you have asked a question, and I'm going back to it, that we are expecting the court. We don't know whether they are going to lift a conservatory order on the ruling that was made on the finance bill, right? That is what you've asked. And I am saying here that the court and the judiciary is an arm of the government that we envisioned by the framers of the Constitution, that is independent just like other arms of the Constitution. And therefore, if one of the aisles celebrate that a decision has been made by the judiciary that do not favor them, all that we can say is that we respect that decision, even if we are not happy with it, because that is an arm of government. And there are so many issues, and Mheshimiwa Kagombe has said that if we are going to now and talk about the finance bill, everyone is going to talk here until the cows come back home, because we are pushing an issue based on the side that we are in. So we have been here for months talking about finance bill. We can probably have still time to talk about it.
And that's why I said we cannot discuss
okay.
it because the matter before court.
Because the matter that the court had made a ruling, and still they'll make their decision
we can't
today.
Discuss about that.
However, Victor, this is my opinion, because you've asked for what is our standing? What is the state of the nation?
That's the question.
That is what you've asked. What is the state of the nation? And we've given our state of the nation. Mheshimiwa have talked about the issues of economy in this country. Whether we are trying to run the country, balancing the economical angle of it, whether we are trying to mismanage our politics, whether we are strong in terms of the rule of law. But for us, I can tell you that I see a situation where in this country, there are people who are still dissatisfied. There are people who are still able to channel their frustration through a street demonstration. And let me tell you that in the events that you saw happening in Sabasaba Day, it was not only the opposition. We had members of civil society, including the former Chief Justice that was tear-gassed at Central Police Station, right? Right. That was on it is not me speaking about it. It was on televisions and it was in the public domain. So in a country where people are still manhandled, in a country where people are still dissatisfied by the right to express freedom of expression, that one worries me as an individual. For the gains that we've made, in a democratic gains that we've made, it's semblance of backsliding in democracy. And I would like to tell you there are people in some quarters in this country who are not happy that such gains are still. However, I also strive to be just, and I'm always just and fair in my assessment, that we cannot allow the country where there is an anarchy, when people are demonstrating, others are targeting people's property, others are burning people's cars, others are burning people's matatus here. That is not unacceptable. But we would like to say that we still have articles in the Constitution that gives people a right to demonstrate, that gives people a right to collect signatures wherever they are going to take it. They have a right to collect those signatures, and they have a right to petition wherever institution they want to petition. And I'm perturbed, by the way, there are a number of memorandums that were given to the Select Committee. And I keep on questioning this in various platforms. Do we have a situation in this country where the citizens are at the mercy of who? Because if we put our memorandum in public participation, where else do we have a point to rejoin and know that in regards to what my memorandum addressed, such and such an issue was given and has been addressed in the in the public participation? Yeah. What is the comeback do we have? Finally, I didn't say that, this platform, that other people should be gagged for speaking. I just said that since we do not have a benefit to listen to someone from Azimio, we cannot really take a truth from one of the senators that is sitting on that panel, because it can't be a half-truth. That is just unfair to the process.
Okay.
So
and I'm not saying that
because you're not an elected member. You're not an elected member of parliament. Your truth is the truth, but because I'm an elected member of parliament who's affiliated to UDA, my truth is half.
You are if I'm not an elected citizen.
No. You will not make anybody to discuss.
The Constitution has given me the you are represented.
And you allow people to discuss.
He has given an opinion. That is his opinion.
Because I am a citizen of the. I am from a civil society. So you are a representative, and you cannot make sure. He cannot see that he can speak more. Is this a representative in the House?
I asked Senator this question. Based on what's on the paper here on Otiende. Otiende wrote this. So this one acting from, the question is here, what Otiende said. The reason why. And I asked Senator the question.
Yes.
And Senator responded. Didn't you respond to that? And I can still ask that question. She can also remember that she was in the panel of the bipartisan talk. So it was okay for her to respond.
No, I haven't said it's bad. I'm just saying.
So it was okay for her to respond.
I still my gun.
I can still ask this question.
That you cannot
just a minute.
Because I'm elected. So because he's a civil society, he comes from the civil society. He has the right to speak about anything.
But that is his opinion. I think he has a right to his opinion.
He has a right to his
opinion. Irrespective of if he's elected or not. He has a right to his opinion. One thing I would say, let's go back to the state of the
Mheshimiwa, I will still ask Senator for clarity purposes.
Yeah.
Otida Molo is a renowned lawyer, we know. He was part of that panel, right? He was there. And he's given a story why Azimio suspended talks indefinitely on May 31st through letter to committee. Senator will tell us the reason why. All right? So that will come later on. Senator, you will respond to that later on in details. Meanwhile, continue, Senator Muya.
Yeah, what I would say is we were talking about the economy of this country, where almost every Kenyan is touched by it. First and foremost, we have a budget here which went through 3.6 trillion. If this money, the budget of this country, if this money went to doing what it's supposed to do in every ministry, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Public Works, every ministry, how it was allocated, and everything is here, this country will be far. What is our biggest problem as a country? Corruption. Corruption is one of our biggest problems in this country.
Yeah.
The taxpayer, yes, it is good. The ideas are nice. The finance bill is good. But does that money go to the common man? Does the taxes we pay, does it touch everybody, every Kenyan in this country? First and foremost, we are talking about a lot of things, but are we talking, how comes I am not hearing anybody talking about corruption? Because that's where our biggest problem is. We are losing so much to corruption. Why, if every single cent which was paid by the common man, the taxpayer, goes to doing what's supposed to be it Ministry of Health, be it roads, and you alluded to it, you have in accidents all over. Why are the accidents? These accidents, majority of time, they are caused by what? Corruption. The police, roadblocks, so many other bombs which are not supposed to be there, so that the cars stop and then they get corruption. If every single cent paid here, and this budget of 3.6 trillion, if it goes to the common man, you will not even have anybody demonstrating.
Victor, let me just, and I'm happy because of the way you're taking the conversation. And I am not an apologist of any corrupt individual in this country. And I think corruption should be taken seriously. And I think I am very dramatic. I think we should have execution in the public for people who are
precisely
corrupt. But I want to say this: even if we spend that 3.6 trillion according to the budget, as is, we will still not fix this country. If we are spending, if you're placing money in the government for government to go and buy furniture from another country, we will still not fix the issue of employment in this country and the issue of resources. We must first act and ask ourselves, how is the budget making process? When we're making budget, are we considering this country? Are we thinking about production in this country as we in the budget making process?
Very true. Yeah.
Because if we say, because you see, corruption is how we take corruption. I sit in the Public Accounts Committee, and how we take corruption in this country is this money was supposed to be spent by this ministry as in this particular way. Did you print in the newspapers? Did you put the tender? You know, and if it's done, then there's no corruption. But for me, we need to do more than just just following the line that the budget lines, all right? Because even if we follow the budget line, but the budget lines are taking money outside this country, we will never create employment in this country. And if we've not created employment in this country, we will not fix the issue of cost of living. And I said, even if the cost of fuel is 10 shillings, and that 10 shillings is hard to come by, then there will still, the cost of living is still going to be high. So what we're saying is, and that is where this conversion needs to go. Every ministry, when we sit down to do your budget, you must think about how you're going to help in the issue of manufacturing, in the manufacturing agenda in this country.
Yeah.
How we, and you know, we keep saying, can you imagine, Victor, that last year and even this year, we have been importing maize, foodstuff. We understand that we had a dry spell last year, and we have had a very bad spell. But can you imagine, even now that we have had rains, and sufficient rains at that, during this year, we're still going to have these problems coming next year. Because we do not institute mechanisms. The Ministry of Agriculture has not figured this properly as yet previously. But now we're trying, because we are saying we need to have fertilizer coming, we need to afford seeds, we need to have all those things. But it's still not sufficient, because, you know, it's not something that we're going to fix once and for all. But that is the direction we need to be going. Saying, instead of, we need to look at inputs and start being self-reliant, going into the future.
But that is very true. I agree with you. But where do we start? Where do we do that? First, we start with correcting what is wrong, which is, even if you were to buy it locally, even Kikomi, and then that shirt, which costs about 50 shillings, ends up being paid for 200 shillings because there is corruption there in between. Then we are still not fixing this country. If you go back to history, and it's something even I was here sometimes last year but one, before the elections, we discussed that issue of talk of Malaysia, talk of Singapore. We want to pick those economies. But where did they start? They made corruption one of the worst crimes in that country, so that whatever little comes out of the kitty, the government kitty, goes to serving the common man. If you don't do that, even if you say that we still stay local, we talk about maize. And recently we saw an expose which was done by the Nation newspapers, the Nation media, and it came out with another story. Here we are trying to reduce the cost of living by getting things, importing oil, but look at it. It ended up becoming more expensive than even get it in locally. So we are talking about locally. When you talk about locally is where now employment comes in. But now you are importing from either Malaysia or you're importing from any other country. But now when it gets here, it's more expensive. And then there's a farmer here, talk about sugar, name it.
Yes.
But where is the problem? Corruption again. You see now, when somebody hears there's this deal coming, what, they start planning on how to make money. And then corruption comes in. Now, what was supposed to benefit the common man? Very good idea. And Kenya Kwanza, I would say, they are trying their level best. But they need to talk about the issue of corruption, because that is where the problem starts from. It is corruption. If we sort out this issue, if we sort out the issue of corruption, then we are likely to move
the president
as a country.
Is quite strong on that.
We need to be very sensitive to what
you will
corruption
be
is all
personally
about.
liable to that.
And then this country is good. Let me tell you, Kenya is a very good country. We survived so much, and human resource, name it, we sit well. But now, where is our biggest problem? It's corruption.
All right. It's 8 on the dot, and I want us to take a break. When you come back, Senator, I'll come back to you, and of course with Daniel. I want us to talk about the issue of the liberation. We are talking about the financial liberation, that we as a nation, we can come together and see ourselves coming to that liberation. We talk about the first and the second, and now the third liberation as a country. How can we achieve it collectively? Democracy, financial, and what have you. How can we get there? We'll talk about that when we come back. Wow. Hey, Oga.
It's a human being, some I got
All right, welcome back. Sometimes I wish we had behind the scenes, but that's not for you. That's for us. Welcome back. You're watching Iron Politics. This is Good Morning Kenya on KBC Channel 1. Okay, Senator, we need to come back to the real discussion, because when you talk about the third liberation as a nation, and I'm happy you're talking about issues that concern the common mwananchi, the cost of living, this bites across. So how, as a country, from where you sit, do we achieve? Mheshimiwa Kagombe said that first of all we have to fix the issue of employment. All of us agree that the issue of employment should be either through informal employment or through white-collar jobs, whichever way. But that job bracket must be expanded.
And you see, that brings me to an earlier comment I made on this platform the last time I was here.
Yes.
Most of the people are unemployed are young people. These are the same young people the Azimio side has been using in Maandamano. And if you look at the ringleaders who are spearheading the Maandamano, they have sorted the lives of their own children. I like reminding the young people to look at this picture. Honorable Raila Odinga Ren was elected as Member of Parliament in 1992. I was being born. Honorable Martha Karua was admitted to the bar in 1981. My mom was in school. Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka was elected first in 1986. My mom was still in school. When you look at their children, they were already elected to the East African IALA. But sons and daughters of ordinary people are being subjected to going for Maandamano, whereas they should be directed to getting jobs that can put food on the table. As a country, I'm really worried when we can leave enemies of this country to always fight a legitimately elected government for their own selfish interests. I say selfish interests because we were talking about the finance bill, in as much as that petition is in court right now, courtesy of the same Azimio. They have a right, yes, but I think they are deliberately wanting to have civil disobedience. It's not normal opposition we are witnessing. When they had a chance, the ODM legislators in the National Assembly had a chance of bringing their proposals. Some of them, I'm happy, supported our plan, because our plan caters for every other young person, older person who wants this country to change. But when they had that window to bring their proposals, they walked out of the National Assembly.
Okay.
As a leader, you have a responsibility not only to represent either your political party, but you have a responsibility to this country and the people you represent. You can't be complaining out here, but when given an opportunity, you are walking out. My brother, the analyst, talked about people who are demonstrating. What I see, that is the Mwakenya group who are now in their 70s, and they're afraid that time is running on their end to take power. And that I'm very happy about the Hustler Nation platform that we campaigned on. Were it not for that platform, currently so many ordinary people would not be getting the chances they are getting. For the first time, you saw how our athletes have been received by the president. Initially, they would be given withered flowers. Now you see they've been received with pomp and curl and even money as an appreciation for their whatever they're doing to this country. Those are the things we want to talk about. If I make reference to what Honorable Kagombe here was saying, locally, yes, you just aired news. I think it's Bolt or Uber that are giving 48 hours notice of going on strike if their issues are not sorted. Those mobile applications are part of what the ICT department in this government is looking at, so that we empower our own people to come up with those apps so that our own drivers here are not exploited by international applications which are reaping more than the ordinary person who's doing the work is doing. Those are the conversations we should be having about. At this time and era, we had the bipartisan committee that we anticipated that Azimio who feel aggrieved should bring their issues for discussion on that table. But to my surprise, they do not bring those issues. Instead, buy time, then come out here to come up with another clamor. The other time, they say they were going to pray in the IBC offices until the servers are opened. There was a High Court judge here, a High Court advocate here on that panel, who also admitted that surely the issues of the servers were closed. 11 months, we still want to be bickering about past elections
And you know, we must decide. You cannot. The election process. The electoral process cannot be bad. The electoral process cannot be bad when Raila was not elected. But it is good when that same electoral process has been used to take his son and the daughter to Yala. Then that time, the electoral process is good.
Victor, Azimio, not Azimio. Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, not necessarily. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about
Victor, just wind up. Victor,
you just asked about the progression of our liberation struggles, and you could see that's what you've asked. I'm very keen to listen to what you're asking. Apparently, I don't know why my colleagues are not getting the questions you're asking. You're asking is that what has been the transgression through period of different, democracies throughout, and looking at how then are we progressing from, from independence. If we had,
that is their own interpretation of how to approach it.
Yes,
exactly.
All right.
But we are getting what he's asking. Don't say we are not. Don't say you are the only one getting what he's asking.
If we understand, but you see the diversion you are.
To be fair, that is their own understanding and their own opinion.
Yes.
I have not precisely.
You can't paint it like we are not understanding what you are asking because
you asked. So what is your understanding? And I am keen in what you've asked.
Is Daniel challenging our intellectual capacity?
Honestly,
I am not. Are you challenging our intellectual capacity? That you are misinterpreting.
No. We have not misinterpreted anything. You interpret it your way and answer the question the way you want it. That is why we are not opinion, and we do not have to agree.
And you don't need to quote us.
Yes,
just do it like you want to do it.
Okay, Daniel,
I didn't question your I didn't question your interpretation. What I'm just saying,
you are challenging.
We are not understanding.
You asked
at this point. I will say that honourable members, you are out of order.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Victor,
you're out of order.
Mine is at the third liberation, because you're talking about we were in the second liberation. I think that was the first liberation, probably dealing with independence and Kenya getting to attain independence by that time. Secondly, from what I'm able to see, was probably trying to do the second independence. That was the demonstration that was in 1992. Creating a space for democratic space. And the third one you've alluded to is probably on economic liberation. And all the political parties, because I'm saying I really need to be fair in my assessment. All these political parties, the coalitions that have been advocating for economic liberations, trying to get the Kenyans to lift them out of poverty situation. And all during that campaign, both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio were making promises. How then would we make life easy for Kenyans? Post-election, and even as we expected through any other regime that could come on board. So the senator mentioned something that probably aligned you to this that I would have been compelled to talk about, the issue about young people representation in different political positions. And I agree with her that for a long time, as we are talking about issues of liberation, as we are talking about issues of independence and young people given a space to express their issues, even some of the economic issues that they are feeling the heat, matters of corruption that Mheshimiwa has talked about. If they're expressing this, and I keep on saying, there are two ways of expressing issues. One is directly. Like I've said, that young people can put that through memorandum. They can put that through that petition. They can go through the streets, to express and put petitions to offices that they feel that should listen to their issues. That is their right. And secondly, indirectly, like you said, through the elected leaders. And let me tell you this issue, because you're asking about liberation. We had people, the likes of Tomboya, the likes of Arvin Codex, Raila Odingas of that time, Paul Mwites of that time. I'm not talking about them as octogenarian now. I'm talking about them as young people who are able to rise up and represent their youth and represent, their people by that time objectively. And my problem, and I keep on saying,
like you are doing now.
Yes,
and
even
young
openly. my problem that I keep on saying here is that regardless of any political affiliations we are in, the dissatisfaction of the quality of representation. And let me say this is my right to express it. I do not take exemption that we still have the people that are elected in the guise of special interest groups, in the guise of young people. If there were young people in the parliament, in the National Assembly, all factors were pointing towards that certain memos that were put there, and citizens, were dissatisfied by the finance bill. If there were young people who are representative enough, they could have said, lo and behold, this is not an issue that could be, they could have stood up in that National Assembly to represent.
The question I'm going to ask, right? Because where do we draw the line from both the minority, how it's called, or the opposition, and the government? Where do we draw the line so that even the side of the minority can bring their alternative to the Kenya Kwanza government and have a smooth flow of liberation, the financial liberation? Because including my own kinsmen in the village would want to taste that sense of freedom at the end of the day. Mheshimiwa, from 12th Parliament, how can you draw that line from that point when you're in 12th Parliament, the processes you went through, and was it brought to the 13th Parliament, and what can we even go back and copy and bring right now?
First and foremost, when you talk about presentation in terms of age,
yes, right
now, if you talk about Parliament or Senate, the majority are the young. Exactly. We're talking about between 30, 40,
so that's
45.
That's basically taken care.
So it's already they are the ones sitting there.
Yes.
What are they talking about? They should be the ones now telling us, because actually the representation within Parliament, Senate, the youth is there, is sitting. And when you come even to the positions, and the Mheshimiwa is here, he's a young man. I mean, I'm almost clocking 60. Yet I look young. I go to the gym. But let me tell you the truth. The youth are there, and they need now to see. Then what can they do? They are the ones now talking and also making all parliaments talk about, like the 12th. The youth are sitting, and Daniel, I think, can attest to that, and he's there, he's sitting. You look at Senator here, we are seeing very young people, and that is what we're talking. I think within this sitting, I'm the oldest. So why are they not doing it? But what is the right the way of going around it? We need to understand what is our problem in this country. Where did we start going wrong? Where did the rain start beating us? We have a problem, and the problem is serious, but it's not about Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. It is a problem which has been existing for a very long time. People love it easy, and if you talk about the youth, these youth, the ones we are talking about now, they are in a hurry to be millionaires. They are in a hurry to own big cars. They are in a hurry to live in big houses in Lavington or Karen. They are not thinking about even the youth, the other youth who are coming, our grandchildren. They are just talking about themselves, the riches of the world, that is big car, big house, live in a palatial home. But why are they not talking about sorting the main problem which is facing this country?
Is that question, and that is corruption. Meant to legislators?
Sorry?
Is that question meant to Senator and Kagombe?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Senator, go ahead.
First of all, I should start by saying Kenya Kwanza has been really exemplary in giving young people opportunities, both for especially elected positions, for appointments, even on the ground. But what are we looking at? Are we looking at one position, or we are looking at several positions that will benefit many other people? Even this housing program that guys were arguing that, I don't need a house. But I'm looking at a place where once we have those houses, most of the people are going to benefit. Like for Mheshimiwa Kagombe here, Gatundu South young people are going to be the ones who will be in those projects, from the technical training institutions we have in those projects. Those are the conversations we should be having. How many people are going to get jobs on the digital platforms that this government is creating and transferring services into being available digitally? How many jobs? It's beyond one member of parliament. But as speaking as a legislator, I think for the young legislators, we are doing very well. Because it's for the first time, I told you, we had very robust engagements on the finance bill. Even on pushing matters, young people are very quick to avail themselves when a certain issue arises. I've been on the forefront pushing for the civic education bill, because I believe an informed citizenry are people who can make decisions on behalf of themselves and even take to account their elected leaders on what they do. Because what we are seeing now, Azimio riding on, is misinforming people. And you as the media, in as much as you have a mandate and responsibility of informing the public, you also have a responsibility to put the record straight that surely this is what is being done, not running sensational headlines. As a young legislator, that is what my concern would be. Because really, like me, I'm not at the Senate because beyond just being young, I'm at the Senate because the party gave me a platform. They recognized my hard work, capabilities, so I'm there by merit. So this government recognizes the contributions young people are making, and with your hard work and merit, anyone can succeed in whatever they're actually doing.
Yeah.
So in defense of the young legislators, we're actually doing very well. That's not we are not in any way disregarding what the senior citizens are doing, because we need blended efforts between senior citizens and young people so that we push our country forward. So really, as a young person, I expect what Daniel here was talking about, the liberation.
Yes.
You know, most of the people we are having now as voters don't even understand those multi-party democracy. When you talk about those names you are mentioning, most of the young people currently don't relate. That's why most of them, it's not an assumption, I can tell you. Do you want to tell me most of those young people know what was happening in the clamor for multi-party democracy? Now we already have a constitution that is taking care of all those issues. The issues that we are now talking about that were then is poverty, ignorance, and disease. That is what should concern us as a Senate, as National Assembly, and as citizens. Not these other side shows we are seeing in the name of whipping emotions to have numbers and get a support line for the 2027 now that 2022 is over.
Yeah.
And Victor, Victor, the accusation or the accusation that came from Weshima, which I want to greatly depart from. Yes, you accused the young people of all they want to do is buy big cars and live in big houses. There's nothing wrong with that. Those are aspirations, and that is where we should move. And people should. There's nothing wrong with progress. There's nothing wrong with living in a good house and living in a big, driving a big car and living a good life. As long as let me finish, because you didn't say that. Because you cannot say that because I have a big car and a big house, and I've not been, these are processes of my hard work. Okay. I have not been involved, and I did not buy them yesterday, and I've not been in government before. I've been working in the private sector, and there's nothing wrong with that.
There is nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. We should not vilify progress. You should now frown at corruption and what it does, but don't frown at other things and progress that people do. Because we also people, it's not everybody who is. I agree with you. It's not everybody who is in the public sector, and it's that every young person who has made it good and is living in big houses is an employee of the government. There are people who are just making life. And,
but in reality, that is not what I meant.
Okay, I just wanted to correct that. Yeah. Now I want to say this. There was what was good at that time in 1992. What was good in 1992 was to repeal of Section 2A, to bring multi-party democracy. What was good in 2010 was to to do an overhaul of the Constitution. What is good in 2022 is to think about production in this country and employment.
That is my my question.
Yes, and therefore, that is what I was saying. So you will not compare me with Orogo. I do not have to go to the streets because there's no Moi. So Daniel, don't tell me to go to the University of Nairobi and be a don and be involved in Mandamano and the Mwakenya group. Now, things are different. How we do things different now here is by the stroke of the pen, is to think about the laws that are going to make this country better in the future. And because I'm a trained economist and a practicing one, I will tell you that this noise here and these civil service things, it will not help us. What will help us is a proper working financial policy
to give us
the financial liberation in this country.
Yes. Okay.
Senator Okenyuri just alluded to something. She just brushed it over, and I want to discuss it greatly. We are losing a lot of money that is being repatriated from this country. We have Uber, we have Bolt, who are taking money from your pocket, because when you move from point A to B, that money was made in this country, it is counted as part of our GDP, but then it's going to be repatriated to where they come from. These are the things that we must avoid, and therefore, the liberation that we must be involved now in is that economic liberation. That is not about kurukaruka uko kwa njia na kulala kwa barabara. Is to sit in parliament and ask ourselves in our different committees that are represented, that have representation from across the board. You know, that finance committee that was receiving issues and maoni kutoka kwa wananchi has members from both the minority and the majority. And I'll tell you something, and Mheshimiwa here knows that when we sit in committees, you do not sit in committees as a member of the Azimio or as a member of this group. You sit as members of a committee. And the issues you deliberate in the committee. And that is why every member of a committee, not unless you expressly that you say that you dissent from the decision of the entire committee, and very few cases have come, even in other parliaments, where people have had to vote in committees. Because in committees, people agree. And all issues that are brought to the floor of the House emanate from committees. So if you have a problem with how things were being done in the Finance Committee, we should ask the members of the Azimio, what did your members that you thought would represent you ably in that committee? And everybody that I'm talking about here is someone who's been in this parliament before. The makers, the people who sat and elected members to that committee, because I'm a first-time member of parliament, but these people have been in parliament before and they know how you do committees. You know the intention of creating a committee and the intention of having someone who's been there before time to represent you in that committee, because you know what happens in the committees.
Which committee were you in the 12th parliament?
I didn't sit in any committee, by the way. Yeah.
So and right now, by the way, you can decide not to sit in any committee, but it is the right of every member of parliament to sit in a committee. You can relinquish it, but it is your right to sit in any committee as long as you are in you're in the National Assembly or in the Senate. So I wanted to say this: let us stop this playing to the gallery. You cannot come, be part of a process, bring it to the table of to the floor of the House. You do not dissent, and then go to the other side and oppose it. Yet you had a chance to contribute to it at the committee stage. And by the way, any member of parliament also, he will tell you, you have the right to go, even if I'm not a member of the finance committee, I have the right to write to the chairman of that committee and attend sittings in that committee.
As a friend? As
a friend to the committee.
Okay.
And even if you do not give contributions verbally, you can table your memorandum. And I do not see any memoranda tabled by a member of parliament from the Azimio to the parliament. In fact, I dare say this. When we keep making all this noise and saying, oh, this liberation, all this, the members, by the way, there was only one member of the Azimio who came and made contributions that would make sense during the tabling of the estimates, who was Honorable Anthony Oloo from Madari. Nobody else. So, you know, you can't sit now and sit in Kamukunji and say, now, you know, this is how we are doing. No. You know the right place to do things. I mean, I cannot come on this platform, Victor, you give me a chance to address issues, and then I don't, and then walk outside the wall and start now addressing issues that I should have talked about. So when you have a platform, use the platform, address issues as they should be.
Well.
And now, and as I finish, is to say, the only thing we do is that we sit as members of parliament without kelele. We draft policies that are going to bring back employment to this country, and that is our third or fourth, whatever liberation.
Is that the beginning point of having this country moving into that position of everybody now having enough to enjoy, quote unquote?
I'm very skeptical still. This is coming on a backdrop where one honorable member of parliament, admitted that government had to use, you know, other means so that to persuade the members of Azimio to both ways. I think it's on the public domain. That is MP Silvanus Osoro. Admission, public, on public domain. I am here and I will represent members of civil society. I represent, and I do not, that's why I'm saying I'm fair on my assessment. We have a house, all right? With regardless of procedures, Victor.
Yes.
And I agree with what Mheshimiwa Kagombe is talking about, that there are procedures of the house. That happens, you sit in a committee, you agree, whether you caucus on different platforms, but at the end of the day, Victor, we have to expedite matters that will bring benefit to the country. And in regards to this is why I sit here and I said, the quality, there are ways at which the citizens delegated their power to the members of parliament. All right? Not everyone can go to the assembly. So this is by the constitution, and our constitution, we elected to represent. And therefore, we are expecting that if we sign our memorandums, go to these committees, put petitions, that somehow the representatives would be making sure that they represent our views.
Yeah.
So with whatever happens in House committees, government procedures, I am saying that the citizens, from where I sit, the citizens expect that representatives both at the Senate and the National Assembly, expedite matters that are to them. And this is why, again, I said that the court in its wisdom, the court as an independent, I want to be very objective, the court as independent, halted the whole processes pending some of the procedures that will be announced today. So we are yet to see. Probably they would lift that ban and would allow the finance bill to take an effect. We do not know. We do not know. But at the place that we are sitting, we're saying the court that is independent and out of its wisdom decided to put orders so that to hold that process. This is why I say that if we are here and talking about our representation, and I agree with Mheshimiwa Kagombe and the senator, that sometimes some of these procedures, they are caucusing in both ways, the Azimio, the Kenya Kwanza, but we really want to know, and my interest is to know that what really happened, because there is an assertion that the members of parliament that we elected, some of them, did not really be objective. Some of them were bribed, some of them, and this is not public admission, it is there. So the public, for us to understand, and this is what I said, do we have a feedback? After the public participation, what is the fallback of the citizen, objectively? Beyond passing of the bills, beyond now, putting an act of parliament, where is the place of the citizens in public participation? Where does it end for accountability?
So that brings to the next question, Mheshimiwa. You want to say something, Senator?
Yes, I actually wanted to say the finance bill and now act that the court has actually suspended. The president has been very obedient on the court orders. If you remember, his first agenda was to stand with the Constitution, and he has consequently done that. Secondly, the finance bill that was actually passed received bipartisan support. Someone like Honorable Esther, the woman representative of Nairobi, actually voted in support. Do you want to say she was bullied into voting? She came out saying she thinks this is a good plan, and we have several of such people who have come to support our plan because it caters for the interest of all Kenyans. About liberation issues, as Mheshimiwa Kagombe here, now we are doing things differently. Because I told you most of the people now do not understand the repealing of Section 2A. For the young people whom I represent, have no much understanding of whatever was happening now, because now we have a constitution that is actually taking care of them and stating that young people should be represented in different cadres in government, but not having them channel their dissatisfactions through maandamano, whereas I can come up with a bill, canvass matters in the committee or in the plenary. And for your information, by the way, like in the Senate, the members of the opposition have been not showing up when we have question time for the cabinet secretaries. But then you will write a statement, say how your people in Kanyaboli are suffering, whereas when you want to summon the CS to appear and respond to your concerns, you walk out of the sittings. That's not the country we want to look at. This government has given all the political goodwill to have us steer ahead whatever project we wanted to do as a country.
Daniel, there's something Daniel has said. And Mheshimiwa, you need bribing. Is it
just
true?
1 minute break.
You need to answer that.
Let's just take one minute break.
Demonstration is in Constitution.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we're still going to continue this conversation. A lot more after this break. Stay with us. All right, the producer says that we should continue until 1 p.m. Is it possible? No, we can't. I mean, I ought to let them go. All right, Michael Muya, former member of parliament, Kangundo constituency. The oldest, he says that he's the quote-unquote, the bazoo, the OG in this group. Very well. I've got Senator Esther Okenyuri nominated. Senator Gabriel Kagombe, who I need to ask, alikuwa happy over the weekend.
I was in charge.
Okay. Praise the Lord.
And yesterday we did Kagombe in Gatundu Stadium, so everybody knows where I was.
People of Gatundu, yes,
and we sang until very late.
He's a good man. He's a good man. He's a good man. All right. Daniel Orogo, political analyst and governance
and
expert.
For the
he is an Azimio man.
Record,
he should know that he's a... it is a sad day for Kenya.
Any political
it is a very sad day for this country, Oloo. When you give someone to say that he's an analyst, but he's a he represents the Azimio divide. You know, it is very wrong. It is a sad day for Kenya for people to hide behind, these other things like, I'm an analyst, I'm a, political analyst, this thing. You represent the Azimio group here, and it is good to come out.
But
Don't
Victor,
Let me say,
okay, Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, we are all Kenyans, and we are talking about
but
the
he
state
said
of,
initially he had made an
assertion.
He had made an assertion that we
good of
cannot
this
talk about Azimio because Azimio is not represented. He is representing Azimio. So please, and I told you to represent them ably. Don't be afraid of these UDA people.
All right.
Yes, don't be afraid of Senator here.
Mheshimiwa Senator, as you sip your cup there, let me just come back to, and I really would like you to make me understand what really happened, because the issue of bipartisan talks completely disappeared. We no longer talk about it. It's either gone into something else, but according to what you know, is the Raila said that bipartisan talks is not going to continue. So, based on what Otiende Amolo said, if you can give me your side of reply.
Let me ask you, Victor.
Right.
So bipartisan talks stopped because Right Honorable Raila Odinga
Now I'm
said...
saying, according to him, that they are not going to participate further in the bipartisan talks. Whether it will continue, they will pronounce themselves into that.
One thing you need to understand, Victor, Azimio keeps making new demands every other time.
Now that's what I want to understand. That's what I want to understand. Kindly go ahead.
And every time they are making demands, I think it's an excuse to opt out of the talks. As the Kenya Kwanza side, we've been very patient, and we are still patient waiting for them on the table. In our last presser we did, we actually highlighted some issues that we were actually waiting for them to come to the table. You know, we have timelines. There are constituencies like Banisa where they lost their member of parliament. Now they have no representation. We have several wards which have no representation need by elections. So are we going to stop because people do not want to continue engaging in these talks? For that, like the IBC process, that is a process which we as a committee have no control over. We all know how IBC composition is done.
What was the main contention there?
So in other words, you're saying there was no goodwill from the word go from Azimio?
You know, I'm not the best person to talk about this because she sits in that committee, but I want to say this. On the day that the team was made was when Azimio announced their members of the team and our team announced the members. Raila Odinga started disputing that team from that day. You remember he had a problem with Mutuse sitting in the team?
Let me Honorable Kagombe, yes. When actually our team was read in the PG we had, first Azimio didn't want one of the honorable members who was there, who left the committee and was replaced by the SACU member. After that, they started coming up with new demands that we now have interim agreements. Without honoring these interim agreements, we can't proceed.
Yeah.
The next time we decided to even agree on now a framework of engagement, which we agreed, and we came to the press and told the public that we've actually agreed, we have a framework of agreement. And that's why I'm even wondering, when Right Honorable is saying they have pulled out of the talks and we have a framework of agreement, which requires a certain notice for you to pull out and even notify the chair, the co-chair of the other side that you're actually expressing interest of pulling out.
Yeah.
They have not done any of those. And we've still been patient enough waiting for them to come to the table. If at all the interest they are pushing for are interest of Kenyans. If you want justice, you have to come with clean hands.
You know, this is a political process that Honorable Raila Odinga wanted to use to escape from the responsibility of leading people to the streets, and he was looking for a way out. So what he did, he found a way out, an avenue out of this quagmire. And he decided it was a bit hot because now people are asking him, or looking up on him and telling him, now you give us the way forward. So there has not been goodwill for these talks from the get-go, from the Azimio side. And that's why every time they saw an opportunity, they made an excuse. Every time, you know, they even said that, oh, now the team shall not be speaking from parliament, the representation has to come from outside, oh, we need to
And
involve,
imagine Honorable Kainan, whom they didn't want, is a seasoned politician in this country. He represents the pastoralist community.
Okay.
Just like you would say, and you do not want to have me in that committee. Whereas I represent young people in that committee. I represent geographically from Nyanza people. In the Senate, I'm the only woman in that committee. Would you want to water all that down?
Yeah.
By already starting to lose trust in one of the committee members. And when we proceed, you eventually don't even come up with those issues. I've told you, they've never brought the issue of cost of living.
Okay,
Which was one of the mandatory things that they said if we don't talk about it, they're going to the streets.
Okay.
If they do not want to address, to explore this chance of talks we are giving them, let them go to the streets where they belong.
According to Tienda Molo, he said that why the Azimio side snubbed the meeting with Kenya Kwanza, he said that in the letters, Azimio wanted the recruitment of commissioners to be suspended until the conclusion of the talks, and an assurance that IEBC CEO Marjan Hussein be ordered to preserve the servers and the data therein. There continues that committee co-chair, that is George Murugara, has however maintained that some demands were unreasonable and unattainable. And
I support what Honorable Murugara has maintained, because the issue of servers, this issue was canvassed at the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And once a matter has been canvassed at the Supreme Court, they know what to follow. In fact, the co-chair, Honorable Tienda, was among the ones who went for the scrutiny when the court allowed it. I think you remember that, because it was broadcasted in the dailies and in the national televisions. So I think they're not coming with clean hands. They're keeping Kenyans in the dark. Let Azimio tell Kenyans what they really want out of the talks. Okay. This is not going to be like the BBI process that they wanted to spearhead.
Okay. Daniel, you want to say something?
Yes. I think you can remember I have been on set, consistent about the issue of bipartisan talk. He has the benefit of some knowledge because Senator sits at the talks and knows exactly what takes place. And you remember sometime here I say that we have a selection panel that was constituted according to the Constitution. The select panel. Yes. Victor, I said this before, and you can remember that now what happens to the fate of the select panel that had already been there, members of people who, those who are elected from different, institutions, constitutionally to compose the select panel. Victor, I've been saying this, and therefore I asked, what is the outcome of the bipartisan talk? Would we suspend the selection panel that was constitutionally there to enable a bipartisan talk that it is not in the Constitution, but for the issues that were raised and in the context that the bipartisan talk came in? So, Senator, I have also been here questioning, do we now put those people back? Victor, because I think for me, I saw it at this one. Maybe it was for the goodwill of the country because of the political temperatures by that time. But I was seeing that some of these issues that the bipartisan talk we're going to converse about might be constitutional issues. What happens if there is a stall? So I had been questioning that, so that Mheshimiwa Kagombe do not accuse me of spreading one. I have also been questioning about the issue of the talks with regards to selection panel, because I saw the selection panel was constitutionally given the mandate. Secondly, I am, however, not in agreement, that a public cannot be informed about the outcome of this bipartisan talk. That they might be informed. There must be an accountability on the progress of this bipartisan talk. And the intrigues that are happening on the bipartisan talk should equally be truthful. And I agree with what the senator is saying. If that is one issue, that one political function are frustrating the talk and probably having an end game, if the talks are stalling to go back to the street, probably that it is. But what I was saying before, so that I do not be misquoted, I was saying that since we do not have the benefit, Mheshimiwa, of being in the sitting, all right, and one of the senators sits at that, and the other senator on the other functions are not here, some of these assertions, and we might not really substantiate some of them. Because the moment the other person would say that, we were given the benefit, one of the senators in the panel, we were not in the panel. So we do not have the complete understanding of the intrigues that were happening there, except what Senator is talking about, because we cannot believe, we can believe, because it would be part, someone can dispute.
Victor.
Secondly, thirdly, I was speaking, Senator, as I conclude. Thirdly, the issue about, young people, and Victor have also been very consistent about this. The issue about young people always in the forefront of political demonstrations, always being used for selfish interest, as Senator has put it. It is an issue that I think we should be looking, because we are talking about the issues of, having young people do something with their lives. If young people are meaningfully engaged to contribute in the economy of the situation, I don't think they will be available.
Yeah.
But since the government has not really fast-tracked their delivery agenda, that is why we see young people on a weekday, midday on a weekday, they are able to fill up Kamkunji grounds. Where are these people coming from? We should also be looking at that in retrospect. Not only saying that, there are people who, as Muya are using, there are people, of course, and this is why I said both the political functions are misusing the young people for their agenda.
Right.
We cannot substantiate that it's only as Muya, we cannot substantiate it's only Kenya Kwanza. It is both the political affiliations that are using young people for their interests.
I asked this question because now the senator is here and she sits in that committee. I said because it's also written by a member of that committee. So I wanted that clarification from her, because she's also a member of that.
And for sure, you had in our last presser, whereby we actually said if we are still putting our doors open for the Azimio side, but now because of constitutional timelines, we feel the panel should proceed with their mandate.
The question is, if are you ready to continue the talks?
We are very open. Kenya Kwanza has been very open for the talks. But I can tell you, Azimio, from my personal analysis, has been buying time for with this issue of dialogue, so that they have time to rebrand their destructive maandamano. And you can clearly see, because anytime you even plead with them, come to the table, they introduce new demands. That's why I told you we are dealing with an opposition which is not any ordinary opposition, but an opposition which wants to create civil disobedience, not putting the government in check on what it's meant to be doing.
All right. So that was just about that. I wish we had the other side of Azimio to give us a clear taste of that. But the fact that the question was raised, I raised this, I wanted a clarification based on this, because it's also.
But why do you need another side? What we are
Well, I've already said the side.
Because we do not have anyone sitting on the side. This is which is from the other. It was a bipartisan talk.
It was based on that. It was not a main discussion.
The truth has just been laid bare.
How do we believe that is the truth?
And Victor,
Are you telling us that we should not trust Senator?
How do we believe that?
Are you saying that we should not trust Senator Okenyuri?
Are we saying that we should?
Are you saying that Senator Okenyuri is lying?
Are we saying?
Are you saying that Senator Okenyuri is lying?
I'm also asking you. Do you want us to
Okenyuri has just put the truth
same way
on the table. It has just been laid bare.
Do you want us also to distrust that the other selection panel was wrong?
The truth has just been laid bare.
Victor,
yes.
I want to respond to the analyst Daniel here. You actually asked me that question based on an article done by one of the members on the other side, which you believed is the position of that side. That's why you asked me on this side, and I've given you the position, stating clearly that I think Azimio was buying time to rebrand, using dialogue and rebrand their destructive maandamano, because Kenya Kwanza, even in our pressers, consequently, we've been saying we are open, come, let's talk. But anytime we give such appeals, we are met with requests for more demands, more unattainable demands. You see, like when you talk about the issues of preserving the servers, really, can a bipartisan committee preserve the servers? That issue was discussed and conversed extensively at the Supreme Court. And Honorable Otenda Molo was among the ones who are checking the scrutiny when the courts allowed it.
All right. Okay, Mheshimiwa, I'm told that I should take a look at what the traffic has. Oh my goodness. We should just finish this conversation right now. I'm coming back so that you can give me your closing remarks. How is that looking like? If you're still in the house,
is for that side. So I'm responding based on your side.
Let me start with Uhuru Highway. The traffic already is now starting to build up, but so far so good. Along Langata Road, if you're coming from Galleria Mall down to Langata Road, Langata Barracks, coming towards Southern Bypass, all moving pretty well. Coming towards the Western Hotel, there is a bit of a snarl up because of that roundabout joining Mbagathi Way. It was supposed to be Raila Odinga Way, but still stuck at Mbagathi Way. We are all used to that, Mbagathi. Mbagathi Way joining towards City Mortuary roundabout. It's a bit busy, and it's now starting to get messy as we approach Ngong Road. Then coming to Valley Road, moving down to the Kenyatta Avenue. It's just a bit bumper to bumper as you join All Saints Cathedral into the CBD, and that is just that. Now, let me take you what it looks like at the Ngong Road. Ngong Road, ukitoka those sides of Ngong, the only place where we are going to get a problem is that junction, around Junction Mall, because when you're joining Kingara Road from Lavington Shopping Mall, that T-junction joining Lavington Shopping Mall, that's where the problem is, at the lights there. But moving towards Ngong Road, down to Prestige, Adams Arcade, and ultimately to joining Valley Road, all moving okay. And finally, those people coming towards Agwing Skodek, how is it? Agwing Skodek, kila kitu iko sawa. You can also come towards exactly Gitanga Road, coming to Agwing Skodek, all moving pretty well. Okay, so let me give you a minute each, gentlemen, lady and gentlemen, so that you can give me your final remarks as we come to a close. Mheshimiwa, Muya, do we have hope for this country as far as everything is concerned? Everything looking up?
Yes, Victor. Thank you, Victor. First and foremost, thanks for having me. And I would say I thank God that I'm a Kenyan and I love this country.
Very well.
And if you talk of East Africa, Kenya is a country which has really matured democracy-wise, and we are on another level in terms of East Africa and also in Africa. And I would say I accept the fact that Senator Mheshimiwa Kagombe here, they agree with the role of the opposition. The role of opposition is to put the government in power, the check, and make sure things are done right. So far so good. We might have differences. This is opposition, and their job is to do what exactly they are doing right now. It is to put the government on check, keep the government on check, and I think they are playing that role. Kenya Kwanza is also very receptive on the role of the opposition, and she has even said it. But of course, there are differences on how they check the government, which is very good, and that is democracy. So we have grown in democracy as a country, and I do appreciate that, and I thank the panel and the ideas around everything. We might disagree here or there, but we are brothers and sisters, and we are not living in this country, and we work for this country, either in terms of making this country better than it is, and that is where we are going, and I believe we are in the right footing, and soon or later we will be there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The OG, the old man in the house. All right, Senator, go ahead.
Any Kenyan who actually cares about this country would notice that we have a caliber of leaders who would be happy burning their own country into ashes, which shouldn't be the case. And I'll keep saying this. The Azimio we are dealing now is not any ordinary opposition we are seeing. We are dealing with an outfit which is constantly out to incite the public against a legitimately elected government. I leave it at that.
Thank you so much. That was brief and good. All right, Senator Kagombe.
I say that
Senator Kagombe, Mheshimiwa Kagombe, right? Beg your pardon.
I say that the issues that I've been seeing in the last few months are a play to the gallery. Because the real issues that we have about the cost of living cannot be addressed in the streets. We know and we accept that there are hard times, but these hard times have not just been occasioned by this Kenya Kwanza government. These are hard times that have been there perpetually. Even during elections, we're talking about unga, and we know that times have been bad. We need to come back together, stop playing to the gallery, and look for a solution together. The solution is going to be fiscal policy, and how we protect our industries in this country, and how we create more industries in the country so that we get more people employed. And we must take care of our comparative advantage and produce what we can, and only buy what we cannot produce here.
Thank you so much.
I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. Daniel, 30 seconds as well.
I think it's incumbent for all Kenyans to maintain internal vigilance and hold the government to account. And I think that is far right, constitutional, that we have a democracy that spells out that we have separation of powers, that any citizens in this country can petition government if they're not delivering what they promised to do. Because a government comes and signs a social contract with the people. Both opposition, both government has got a mandate in this country. However, let me also conclude with this, not politics. Victor, we should urge our drivers to be very careful on the roads. Because we, in a span of, I think 6 months, the numbers are going and still counting. Yeah. So let us also urge our drivers, let us also urge, people who are concerned with the transport sector to look into that, because we are losing Kenyans.
Thank you.
That.
We'll get into that discussion later on with NTSA and members concerned with this kind of department. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Orogo, political analyst, Gabriel Kagombe, member of parliament, Gatundu South. I'll need to ask, where were you over the weekend? Thereafter, what happened? Senator Esther Okenyuri, thank you so much for joining us, as well as Michael Muya, from member of parliament of Kangundo constituency. Your valid company is valued. You, as a viewer, asante sana for waking up with us from 7 a.m. It's 9. All right, tumalize. Twende tujenge Kenya. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Sunday.
All right. Oh, thank you so much.
Asante.